Welcome to the Food Professor Podcast, episode 28. I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm Sylvain Charlebois.
The Food Professor is brought to you by Omnovos, the digital customer engagement solution for grocery and restaurant marketers, helping you deliver personalized and segmented experiences at scale. Find out how you can get personal and grow sales by making every customer interaction count with Omnovos at realcustomerengagement.com. All right, Sylvain, great episode, lots to chat about, and a very special guest, Michael Graydon, president of Fhcp. I got to get used to saying that, new organization. He talks about that in the interview. Food, Health, and Consumer Products of Canada, which is really a behemoth, right? They represent a wide swath of things that are on shelves and sold and manufactured or imported. We'll get to that interview in a bit. Actually, we're going to have a two-part episode, so to speak, with Michael. We had a lot of great discussions about a wide variety of issues. He's got a fascinating background. He talks about the issues that his members are dealing with. We talk about sustainability. We talk about the code of conduct. We talk about trends, and really we got a lot to work with. So we're going to break that into two different episodes. So part one is today. Part two will be our next episode. Let's a great virtual gala last week, the Canadian Grand Prix New Product Prize Award, which we sponsored.
And you look good, Michael. You look good.
Well, thank you. And by the way, you might notice something different in my background. 1998 called. They want the yellow paint back.
That's right. Yes.
That's right. Yeah. So I'm in the middle of my contractors are here doing a lot of work, and the next time you see me on camera, it will be a bit of a different look. So I'm happy to get this. But 22 years, I think. I said, 1998 called, and they want this color, which was very fun back then, but not so much now.
It looks good. I mean, it looks good. The background looks good.
Yeah,
I'm cheating with my banner, so it doesn't matter what color. Yeah,
you hide a few sins behind that banner. I'm sure.
That's right.
Put a banner up. You put all the dirty laundry behind the banner. Anyway, we had several bonus episodes where we interviewed finalists, and some of those finalists actually took home the hardware. I think about Reynolds.
Yes.
I think about Sobeys. I think about Hard Bite Chips. I think
Longos.
About New Melts, who was just on. Longos, our listeners haven't heard the Longos interview yet, so we do have more interviews that are actually recorded and more to come up. So we'll have lots of bonus episodes and interviews all through the summer. We're going to take a bit of a hiatus, you and I.
Were you surprised by some of the winners, losers? What do you think?
No, I actually, the Melts, who we interviewed, I mean, it sounded to me like a great product, but sometimes it doesn't land right for the judges. May
not be perceived as food. Yeah.
Right. Well, so I thought that one I was pleasantly surprised. Let me just put it that way. I haven't tried the product, as I said, but it sounded really interesting and such a great entrepreneurs. I mean, I didn't, in some ways I didn't see the veggie side, we had it was a Galia butter one. So I saw some sustainability products. It would have been interesting to me to see some of the veggie products win, but maybe they're just not there yet. Or maybe, just compared to in the categories, and the categories are lumped together the way they are sometimes a bit, just because they're not just the categories, but it's how they go to market. So they got to figure out some way to put them in the same category, right? There's so many products. So anyway,
I must admit, I was a little bit disappointed to see Leclerc not win, unfortunately, because I fell in love with the product. My family has fallen in love with their Go product, so it was unfortunate. But I was a little biased, but I was happy with all of the winners. Great innovation. I'm really looking forward to next year, and frankly, I was proud to be part of it as a sponsor and to see you on air. Talking about what we do, and we try to promote innovation as much as we can.
Yeah. Did you any trends in the winners? Like if you assume that the judges are all kind of representation of both the industry and people, did anything jump out at you as a trend overall from the products either submitted or those that were winners?
It's there seems to be, with innovation, sometimes you're surprised because maybe judges. I felt that judges were looking for traditional sort of solutions, I guess, with the convenience. But what I've also noticed is that most of these companies have invested years and years of research and development to come up with these products. Like Nestle a non-food product, the Nestle win 10 years. 10 years to actually come up with the product, and to win was probably just overwhelming for the company. So, it was great. Hearing the stories, even though the gal was virtual, I mean, hearing those stories behind the creation of these products was also very amazing. But that's what innovation is all about, right? You have to think, it's like developing cars. You have to think 3 years ahead, 4 years ahead, where the market is going to be. The plant-based space right now, I suspect that within the next 12 months to 2 years, we're going to see way more innovation. In fact, I would say that the 29th edition of the Grand Prix, I think we're going to see way more plant-based products, and judges will have a hard time selecting the best.
Well, and it was Longo's, I believe, that won for their plant-based burger. My memory, and we got a great interview with Jenny Longo coming up, talking about how they approach private labels. So lots of great stuff coming up. Let's jump into some of the issues that we want to talk about. The drought on the prairies. There seems to be some really tough weather. We've talked about the effects of weather on our food supply, but to talk about what your observations are about what's happening out there.
I got to tell you, I'm really concerned about water in general in North America. California is having already some issues. In the prairies, it's a dry June. In Quebec, soils are very, very dry as well. There's not a lot of moisture. Now, I'm here in Halifax where it's been raining forever. Some days I feel like I have to go out and build an ark. but in Ontario,
all the rain in the wrong place, right? Too much rain in the wrong place.
And this is what climate change is all about. You basically will have millimeters of rain in one area, but it's not really covering a whole lot. And some places are really affected by dryness. And this is really what in Canada, we need to focus more on. Well, okay, climate change is a reality. How do we mitigate against the effects of climate change? And it has a lot to do with capital and investments. Out in the prairies, you see a lot of farmers who've invested in really high-tech irrigation systems. And sometimes in some sectors, and I'm not going to name any sector in particular, but sometimes the knee-jerk reaction is to go into some sort of trouble because of Mother Nature and ask for a check from the government. Well, that's not sustainable anymore. You have to think strategically about your business. So, and I'm thinking about, control environment agriculture with greenhouses, vertical farms. We have to think about sophisticated irrigation systems, things like that. I don't think we've actually taken water all that seriously as an issue in North America, not just Canada, but in North America. And I think it's going to be a growing problem.
I remember our guest Sherilyn Jolly-Nagel talking about how she used drones and water sensing technology to understand precisely where and what part of her fields needed water. So that's clearly a solution. She's clearly invested in that sophisticated control of the elements. And, it's funny, the past 18 months, not funny, haha, but funny, whatever, we've been focused on COVID, but, climate change hasn't gone away.
No, exactly.
Maybe a few less airplanes and a few less cars on the road has actually been helpful in a micro way. But, I think it's an issue we're going to come back to. Let's talk about this.
And we've talked a lot about food autonomy in Canada, and certainly what you put in the soil, how you make things work, really inputs are critical for agriculture. And so I think we need to have a serious conversation about that. You can always, spend a few millions on high tech grocery stores or flashy things, but really it boils down to agriculture. And if you don't have a strong agricultural sector, you don't have much to rely on.
You don't have security. I mean, and you reminded me, on the weekend I watched Percy. We talked about it in an earlier episode. The Percy Smyser movie about genetically modified corn, or that was Roundup resilient, but also for some of it is also drought resilient. So I just want to mention, I knew you knew Percy. He passed away last year.
Did you enjoy the movie?
I did. I'm a big fan of the actors, and I thought it was an interesting movie. That it was a little bit overwrought sometimes, the dark, menacing vans following the farmers kind of thing.
Monsanto.
That was a bit overbearing, but I thought it was good. I thought it was a very valid discussion.
Did he actually shoot people, Monsanto, or because in the clip, like in the trailer, you see Percy with a gun? So,
in the clip, it was some Monsanto folks on his land taking measurements, and he kind of said, "Get off my land." So there was never any gunplay. But it was, it's fairly dramatic. It's a very interesting story. And I'd encourage anyone of the listeners. It's now out on DVD or on the streaming services.
It's a divisive issue in the prairies.
Yeah.
Of course,
I did not appreciate as much. I think it'd be interesting for you to watch it because you really had farmer against farmer. Like there was a really...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. A lot of farmers did not appreciate what Percy did. Absolutely not.
That rang out like it was Percy against the world in the movie. So
he fought for something, and I've honestly I've always said to farmers, you can be supportive of what Percy's trying to achieve. You got to admire his persistence. You got to admire his vision. He believed in something. He believed that really companies shouldn't be owning agriculture.
Yeah,
and so that was his approach to his death. And so I do admire Percy. I honestly did not agree with him. I actually believe in biotechnology. I believe in this relationship between farmers and the biotechs, but he didn't. But he fought for it.
Yeah. Well, it was an interesting choice in the actors. Christopher Walken, as I said, I'm a big Christopher Walken fan. But anyway, I encourage everybody to watch the movie.
I wonder if they would have picked an actor like Joe Pesci, for example. Maybe it would have been a little bit different.
I think he would have been attacking the Monsanto guys with a pencil. If you think of that movie, get off my land.
Exactly.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this regenerative agriculture. It's a term I'd never heard before. Suddenly pops up on the news. Seems to be a thing. I'd never heard of that term before. Or if I heard of it, I just thought it was another way of saying organic. McCain seems to think it's a big deal. It's all new to me. Tell us all about regenerative agriculture.
It's been around for a while, but it became more popular maybe about 10 years ago. And the attempt was to push aside the organic cult, because organic growing was always seen as a marginal movement, right? And I think a lot of people agree that you can't really feed the world by solely growing organic. But they wanted to figure out a way to make the model more appealing and scalable, really. And so regenerative agriculture is all about how you manage resources responsibly. And it's based on principles. And that's when things get a little bit unclear, at least to me. Depending on who you ask, they'll tell you different principles. So regenerative agriculture really is defined by how you see it. In fact, I just wrote a piece on McCain's commitment to regenerative agriculture, and I just got a response from McCain this morning. And they read my piece and they agreed 100% with my piece, saying, I think McCain's call to commit to regenerative agriculture is not necessarily about, focusing on resource and changing everything and forcing farmers to follow a more bureaucratic model. It's more, I think, about getting people on board. Within 9 years, all countries, including that, will have to adhere to specific United Nations goals, sustainable goals. And there's going to be a summit this summer. And I think that the private sector is expected to come up with some solutions. And that's why the 2030 date comes up a lot.
I was wondering where that came from. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly what McCain is doing. It's basically, and McCain is very good at working the supply chain. One of the best in the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think what's going on with McCain is that it's a bit of a call to its suppliers, saying these are the things that we're going to have to focus on over the next little while. But right now, all we see is a commitment towards regenerative agriculture without metrics. So it's still fuzzy right now. So they have 9 years to agree on specific measurable goals,
right,
which we don't have right now.
Okay. Well, it was new to me, so and I'll put a link in the show notes to your article, because you talk about it in greater depth and other issues surrounding it. So it's a nice. It
is. A lot of people are very critical of regenerative agriculture, but in recent months, we've seen several CPG companies commit to regenerative agriculture. Pepsi, General Mills, and now McCain. McCain is the first Canadian one to do that. And that's why people are wondering, okay, we thought this was about tree hugging and granola crunching. So what's going on here? Well, it's more about it's more about focusing on the big picture, really, I think.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, it sounds like it's going to be a topic for us to discuss in the future as well. So thank you for introducing it. Let's talk turkey. So I love turkey. My wife and I are, we disagree. We agree on many things after being married for 25 years, obviously. We disagree on two things: how often to drink champagne. I think every day, and she likes to reserve it for special occasions.
You would drink champagne every day?
I would drink it every day. I would have a glass of champagne every day.
What's special about that?
Well, every day with my wife's a special occasion. Right?
Whatever.
And we disagree on how often to eat turkey. I love turkey. I'd love to eat it more often than, Christmas and
meat.
Easter. And
it's great meat.
So I created a holiday in our household, Christmas in July. So on the 25th of July, we celebrate, we deck out the backyard like it's Christmas, and we have a nice turkey. Where am I going with this? Why am I telling you this?
I thought you were going to say Festivus for the rest of us, but that's for another show.
It starts with the airing of the grievances, which I think we get to a little bit later in this episode. But I'm wondering if my turkey is going to come from a lab. We've talked about lab-grown products before, but it seems like turkey from a lab, like is this really expanding? It feels like there's some momentum behind this lab-grown product. Talk about it.
There's momentum and cash. Yeah, a lot of non-ag investors are looking at lab-grown whatever, essentially because, the carbon footprint argument is very strong. There's no blood. You basically extract stem cells from a healthy animal, no pain, and you can actually produce all you want without mortgaging Mother Nature and natural resources. Now, Singapore has approved the commercialization of chicken, and we spoke about that, I believe, in December. We are expecting more. I'm expecting that lab-grown meat will be commercialized legally in the United States by the end of 2022.
Wow, that's
next year. Yeah, wow. And it could likely happen in Canada by 2025. Wow. The reason why it may be a little bit slower in Canada, other than the politics, of course, is the fact that there's plenty of land here. There's no rush. We have farms, and
unlike Singapore, right? You made that point in Singapore.
Singapore has no land, so their farms are labs, and so I actually get it. And they want 30% of the meat consumed in the country to be produced in the country. Well, how do you do that? Essentially, you have to actually allow labs to grow. But here's the kicker when it comes to prices. Back in 2013, when that one guy ate this lab-grown meat, it was a steak of about 140 grams. The cost to produce that piece of meat was well over 285,000 euros. Okay, to produce that same piece of meat today would cost you about $5 US.
Wow. So
I don't think people have actually realized how things have shifted so much.
No, not at all.
And so when you think about affordability, and we've been talking about food prices a lot, and we're going to be seeing in plant-based, by the way, I suspect by next year, most plant-based products will be cheaper than the actual real animal protein stuff at the meat
Pricing's
counter.
been all over the map in the price in the plant-based stuff, right? We've talked about that as well.
I would say this fall, we're expecting many new products to enter the Canadian market. That's going to put some pressure on, products like Beyond Meat and everything else, and prices will drop. Lab-grown stuff will come in a little bit later, but I do expect, people concerned about animal welfare, people concerned about the environment. The case is pretty strong. That's why investors are really parking a lot of money. We actually are expecting, based on a Polaris report that I read recently, we are expecting the lab-grown sector at wholesale to be worth about $400 million US by 2025. So it's kind of exciting. And of course, nobody really knows how it tastes. I certainly don't know, but the texture should be the same. You can do, if you think about how powerful that concept can be, like think about people who are anemic, people who are diabetic. You can basically design your own piece of food for your own personal physiological needs. It's incredible when you think about it.
It is. I mean, when I think about lab grown, I think of that scene in one of my favorite movies, The Matrix, where one of the characters is being turned around to be the traitor, and he's eating a steak that he admits he isn't really eating it. It's all in his brain.
The steak doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist, but I love its texture. It does now. Now let's talk about the opposite end of the spectrum. There's this crisis going on in the chicken processing plant. I think I checked this morning. You said there's almost 600,000 chickens that have been slaughtered. Of course they were going to die anyway, but there've been, I don't know. Here's my question: How does a plant like that not able to stop the inflow of the raw material, the chicken? Like, why do they keep coming? And why is the chickens not like, oh, everybody hold on to your chickens, we have some labor disputes? What's going on in that plant that they just have to kill all the chickens instead of just holding on to them? There's no. Well, how does that work?
We have supply management in Canada for a reason. You can't really stop the production of eggs, poultry, and milk overnight. If you have a cow, you can't stop it from producing milk. It will continue to produce milk, and that's why we've set up supply management in Canada to allow farmers to rely on a market. So it's the same in poultry. So there is a sequence of production, which is very intensive, by the way, in poultry. It's about 9 weeks, 8-9 weeks from seeing chicks to basically producing a product ready for harvest. So as soon as you have one major plant shut down, and there's only 2 in Quebec, by the way, you're in trouble very quickly. And farmers just can't really go anywhere else because of the quota system that we have. You can't ship them to Ontario or New Brunswick. And frankly, other places wouldn't have the space to accommodate. So it's a very, very narrowly managed. There are no margins, essentially, which is really part of the problem. And essentially, if something goes wrong, a fire, a strike, affecting some of these plants. And that's why I've always believed, doesn't matter if you have supply management or not, the weakest link of our entire supply chain will always remain processing. If you don't have processing, and if processing is not sound, you'll get into trouble very quickly. And that's what's happening at Excel Dal in Saint-Anselme. And that's why they had to gas thousands, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. 600,000. That's a lot of Saint Hubert chicken that is not happening, I suspect.
So food service is being affected already. So we'll reach 1 million by Friday, 1 million chickens.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, Michael, I mean, this is quite disturbing. Of course, the morality and the ethics of killing chickens for a strike is quite, it bothers me quite a bit. But these people work hard. I mean, they work in a very tough environment, and they're asking for an average salary of $25 an hour. Between you and I, they deserve it. Can we pay that? No way. because we would have to charge more for chicken, and I'm not sure Canadians are willing to pay more. So that's why I think we need to have a discussion about robotics, automation. Our reliance on labor has become a problem in Canada, especially in processing and in agriculture.
Fascinating. I mean, it has echoes of what goes on in the restaurant sector, right? With not the automation part, but are consumers willing to pay more so that the people creating, serving, cooking make a better wage, and the entrepreneurs can make money. Like, it's not always on the razor's edge.
I know that unions don't want to talk about it, but I think we need to talk about robotics and automation, especially for plants that are remotely located, like Saint-Anselme with Excel Doll, because even if the mediator says we're going to increase their salaries by 40% over 3 years and they're going to get $25 an hour, I don't think you're fixing the problem. And other plants will want the same too. Yeah. Dairy, I'm thinking about dairy processing and livestock, and you'll face the same problems. And that's why I think we need to think about, technologies.
All right, last couple of issues for us. First of all, a sugar tax in Newfoundland. What's all that about? I think there's some states that have a sugar tax, like New York, and I guess it's on sugary beverages. Is this about Newfoundland and Labrador taking care of their people, or something else going on here, or what's the straightforward scoop? Yeah. Always that. It's the tax part that's got you interested.
I mean, so I have to commend Newfoundland and Labrador for bringing up this issue. I think we need to talk about this issue. Soft drinks have been targeted for years by different countries like Mexico, European countries. You just mentioned a couple of states in the US. They've done it with mixed results. I mean, if the focus is to actually discourage people from drinking these products, you're probably going to achieve your goals, because what we've seen in Mexico since 2014, the consumption of soft drinks per capita has dropped, but the obesity rate has gone up, and the rate for type 2 diabetes has gone up as well. Why? Because when people want a sugar fix, and they think that the product is too expensive, they'll go somewhere else. So you're not really fixing the problem. You're doing two things. You're penalizing a sector, and secondly, you're taking away money from consumers. The other thing that we've come up that we've seen in some of the research is that supply chains tend to absorb the increase, the price increase at retail. So because these are cheap to make. I mean, for a 2-liter, a 2-liter container will cost you nothing to manufacture. So they can actually play around with margins and basically absorb the tax, like there's no tax at all. So it really depends what you want to do. I've always believed that if you want to tax food, whatever food it is, you have to do it for the right reasons. And I'm just not sure that Newfoundland and Labrador has actually thought about all the details related to what they want to do by April 1, 2022.
Do you think this will catch on with other provinces? I mean, other provinces, I feel like coming out of the COVID era, they're going to need some revenue somehow, some tax revenue, whether it's consumption tax or other taxes. I mean, the governments have put out a lot of money to keep the economy going.
What's interesting about Newfoundland and Labrador is that the beverage sector is not big there. So the lobby is not very, very strong. Try to do that in Quebec or Ontario. Good luck. I mean, Michael Graydon certainly would be opposed to it.
He'd have a new issue.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it would be very difficult, but I wouldn't be surprised if, some lobbyists would actually visit St. John's and ask governments to reconsider, because it could set a precedent. But I think that Quebec, Ontario, other provinces would be different. I think in Newfoundland, I think everyone agrees this is really much about increasing revenues for the government, unfortunately.
All right. Well, listen, lots of issues. Great discussion. Great episode. Let's leave it there. And let's thank again the folks at Omnovos for being our presenting sponsor. And if you liked what you heard, you can follow us on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, your favorite podcast platform. Please rate and review. Be sure to recommend to a friend, colleague in the grocery, food service, or restaurant industry. I'm Michael LeBlanc. And
I'm Sylvain Charlebois.
You think we'd have that better down after,
I know.
28 episodes. But there we go. Anyway, great to see you again. Thanks for joining me. Look forward to our next episode and more bonus episodes. So for now, Sylvain, take care and be safe.
Take care.